Hi, Yenan, and welcome virtually to Moldova.
Hi everyone. Thank you very much for the introduction, Lydia. Hi everyone. Very excited to be here. To be honest, I didn't expect my face would be on the physical screen. I thought this was an online session, but brilliant. Yeah, really glad to be here to share my influencer marketing experience with you all, and really hope you find this session very helpful and to be able to take away any learnings to implement when you go back. So, hi everyone.
We're so happy to have you here. And in fact, when I was reading your bio, I was thinking, wow, I don't even need to translate this in English because the terms of social media marketing have become so universal. There's a universal language nowadays, and we all understand these new terms. So I'm wondering, how have things shifted in influencer marketing from your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I think ever since I started off influencer marketing, which is very much from my background early in the days in social media marketing and content marketing, and around 2016, I've started working with brands. Working with creators and influencers in this very new space, and this is like 6, 7, 8 years ago. It was very exciting and interesting time because influencers started to become a type of the content creators which brands would like to collaborate to build meaningful relationships with these influencers. But when I started working in media, in digital, what I found is lots of brands didn't understand what influencer marketing was, and they wanted to tip in their toes in the water and testing out. So a lot of those campaigns are very much run on we call them like a pay per play per model. So it was very kind of a transactional. So these brands wanted to invest, but at the same time didn't really understand how to build that kind of a long-term relationships. So often you'd see these brands looking at influencer as a media channel. They were looking at putting an influencer marketing plan alongside with paid social media, alongside with display advertising, PPC, and all these other social media and digital marketing advertising, and then to really compare the results of it. So I would say the shift definitely has been a less of that, because it was very early days, and brands trying to explore what it is really in the influence marketing and digital marketing space. To really compare that with other channels. Whereas now I think the focus has been shifted to building more established and relationships with influencers. That being said, is not about sending out a brief and then here you go, you got to create this post and let's prove the post you create and let's look at the results. It's more about selecting the influencers who really represent the brand's value, and they have such a engaged and trusted community which brands are able to tap into, but also to collaborate with influencers and to build the content and trust together. So that's I think the number one thing we've seen shifting is now the brands started to invest a longer term and more meaningful relationships with influencers. So I think that's number one. And number two, I would say it has been starting to becoming very performance driven. When I say performance driven, influencer marketing used to sit on the very top funnel. So brands using influencers to create content to drive awareness, to use their peer reviews to drive very much the authenticity of the product reviews. Whereas now I think brands understand there's lots of other things they could do to actually move those audiences and consumers further down the funnel. So we've now seen influencers being used for lots of performance-driven campaigns. So that being said, there are lots of measurement going behind influencer marketing campaign to really understand how many people have seen this influencer content now actually be able to purchase the product. The brands are advertising, and they also been using measurement like a brand uplift study to look at brand in sentiment, to look at metrics involved, shoppable values. So it has definitely been shifted towards more performance driven. So that's number two. And then I would say the last one is these influencers now being used almost like a digital content creators, as this actually accelerated a lot ever since COVID, because we've seen a lot of small businesses, even big businesses, being facing budget cuts, and there was no enough money or time to actually go to do any kind of productions, video productions or content productions, and they were very much kind of stuck. But if you look at the role that influencers playing in this particular part, they're all amazing content creators, and these brands started to really use them, and also extended that to further like UGC, user-generated content, to really use this like a cost-effective way of producing content for the brands, which they can use on wider digital marketing or even like offline media space to repurpose these content for SEO, website content, social media, or even on the outside billboard. So I would say that's the three key things I've seen that's been shifted over the years.
Thank you so much. This is brilliant and very well said. Thank you so much. I'm wondering, we know that you have a lot of success stories with the teams that you have led. Speaking of results and of statistics, what would be the unexpected results that you've had in some of the influencer marketing campaigns that you've led?
Sure. So I really like the word unexpected results, because you would really think that, working in the media advertising space, that every single plan needs to have projected, deliverables, which is really how we all work in this kind of industry, especially, in the media landscape. Like I mentioned, when I was building leading the team building a influencer plan, often, it has to have a forecast like impressions, conversions, and an engagement metrics alongside of the influencer campaign. So in that way, everything was kind of like a predictable, except the virality of a campaign. So the example I'm giving here is the part that was very unexpected, because usually you see when there's an idea going viral, that's the one that you didn't expect. So I want to give an example of a campaign we run during COVID, a year of 2020. God, that sounds a very long time ago. So it was a campaign for HP, promoting their instant ink service and the printer. So if you think about the product itself, to be honest, it's not like the most exciting sort of like product you'd feel like you're able to work with the influencers to promote, right? So it's just a printer. But because we know there's a role for that printer during COVID period was, especially for the parenting community. We know that, for parents during this particular period, they're keeping their children entertained. And then we've done extensive research around their target audience, which are these parents, showing that it was very challenging for these parents to actually offer something fun and something they can do it together with their kids almost on a daily level. So that was almost their number one challenge. So we've decided to work with parenting influencers across both YouTube and Instagram, and to get them to print out a coloring sheet, and to actually encouraging like a DIY projects with their kids, and to provide lots of like inspirational ideas around how they can use this coloring sheet to actually teach the kids and to entertain together with them to draw something very interesting. So the initial purpose was really to drive awareness of the printer, and actually get the parents engaged with the idea of the coloring sheet, also like the homework they can do with the kids, and to really drive that kind of parenting community. But turned out because the creativity out of this campaign, it started going around viral in the parenting community, that we've start seeing like they've start building like a a content hub, which the parents can actually go on the HP website and to print these coloring sheets. So the campaign went viral on social media as the parents kind of like started to speaking to each other about how they use this kind of like inspirational content board to actually stay entertained with their kids. So a collection of keywords we've collected after the campaign. A lot of them say, "Oh, such an amazing idea," and amazing need, love. So we basically collected all these keywords, and that drove further kind of a website traffic as well as a increase in purchase of the product. So I suppose this example really demonstrates, the importance of content, not only just being entertaining and inspirational, but also to really think of their audience in terms of what they really need and what they wanted to support of, as opposed to just a sale. So it's about, what do their consumers and what your consumers care about. And then it's also a great example of showing how brands are going kind of above and beyond and to really put their audience first when it comes to promoting their product during this particular, difficult time, and not just pushing kind of a sales message.
That's brilliant. It's a great example of how to use momentum to give the audience something that they need. What about brands and influencers? What are brands looking for and what are influencers looking for from your experience?
So I think brands now are really, so if you think about the role between the brands and influencers, is that the brands have the product they want to distribute and they want to push to, whether that's awareness or consideration or conversion stage, they need a tap into the audience and the consumers, and they need a medium. Whereas you see influencers, they have naturally built such engaged community, which their audiences are willing to listen to what they say, and that's why they are called influencers, because they are able to influence people on their decisions. And particularly these influencers have the audience who feel like they want to look up to them in the type of lifestyle they live in. So when it comes to what brands are looking for, I think the most number one important thing for them is the trust. They want to build trust between the brand themselves and the audience or the consumers. And to coming from a brand itself, it somehow takes a lot of effort for their consumers to really trust what they say. Put an example is, like as a consumer, like everyone probably in this room feel like if they want to buy something, the first thing almost they want to do is they go on Google or they go on social media to see what other people are talking about, how other people are talking about it, how they do the reviews, and how their friends are recommending it. So it's about people trusting other people. So the trust for brands is very difficult to build unless there is a medium like influencers which can help them to build that trust. So I think the brands are really looking for influencers who already developed a very engaged community. The people are willing to listen to these influencers, which then represent the brand's image or the brand ethos. I gave you an example, like if a small business just started their business and they claim they are eco-friendly, and they claim that they really care about their consumers' well-being, but how do you know they're actually doing this? How do you know that the fabric they use for the clothing is considered environment friendly? That you really want to demonstrate this through someone that's really seen it, or you work with them on a consistent basis to really demonstrate the fact that the consumer can really trust you in that. So I think definitely brands are looking for influencers who are able to help them to build the trust fact, and then the engaged community, the peers review, etc. So I think for influencers, almost like the value share is vice versa. So if you think influencers just take your money and they produce a post and then put it on there, you're very wrong. So influencers nowadays are also a channel themselves. They developed their personal brand and they have a personal professional image on the in the social media world. So they are really starting to study which brand they would like to collaborate with in terms of the value share. Like, does it really align what they believe, and does it align with their audience's belief? And they are very selective with the brands they want to work with, because they don't want to create a disruptive experience for their audiences, and they don't want to create something they don't feel like is coming from them. So the trust between the influencers and consumers are also very important. So overall, I think the collaboration is very important between the brands and influencers to really align the value, and this is ultimately what they are both looking for in terms of partnership.
Brilliant. We'll get a bit technical at the moment, and if we compare the content that gets posted on Instagram with the content that gets posted on TikTok, what would you say the main differences in content creation are? What should influencers be mindful of?
Yeah, of course. So for Instagram versus TikTok, I think that's a really interesting comparison, because they are actually within itself has very unique style and very has built its own kind of like a community. So I would say on Instagram is very well known for its versatility, because the ability to create and share professional looking, images and photos, as well as the shorts and the long form videos. Basically, it depends on like the type of audience that you want to engage. But I think the content we see on Instagram is very much kind of carefully created, especially on the main feed. Whereas for TikTok, it's basically an entertainment platform. And which thrives on creativity and authenticity. So TikTok is also very solely focusing on the short form videos, which lots of like creators, influencers use to really express themselves in the most authentic way, especially for You Page. As you can see, when users come to the platform, they somehow get addicted, because the content on there are super relevant, and not necessarily from the accounts they follow. So I would say from an influencer perspective, on Instagram they invest a lot of time to create aesthetic and inspirational content for their followers. So they carry this kind of an online persona as a personal brand, like I mentioned. And so they can plan content with much care and attention. Whereas on TikTok, the influencers are a little bit more kind of unconventional. So in a sense, they are just kind of ordinary people. So you probably have seen people just started on TikTok, had maybe 100 or 500 followers, but all of a sudden they got viral because of this one video they create. So they become kind of like a source of entertainment or knowledge, and started to really gain the title of TikTok influencer because of the potential of their following growth. And then they're not necessarily social media superstars, or they could be just anyone, like in this room, for example, really have this really unique idea and create this video can make them become viral, because the way the platform works is really championing the entertaining and the relevancy and relatable content. So I think in general, I would say TikTok influencers are a lot more kind of relatable and authentic, and have a deeper connection with their audiences than Instagram, because it's the video is video sharing is much more intimate, because they're more real in terms of showing their face and really seeing behind the scenes what they do a day in the life, that kind of content. As opposed to the like a carefully planned edited images on Instagram. So I would say think about the community you want to build, think about your audience, and then think about where you'd like to represent for brands, for your product or services, and how you want to develop your strategy. So if your main content goals are to reach more people, show off your brand personality, and go viral, then I think TikTok would be the right one for you.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. You mentioned creativity, and I want to ask you how important it is for influencers to follow a brief versus having creative freedom. And while you think about that answer for a second, I will remind everyone in the audience that you can address questions yourself via Slido, and I will quickly say that in Romanian as well. Dacă doriți să adresați întrebări pentru Ienan, puteți să o faceți prin QR-codul de pe această chestiuță pe care o aveți. Întrebările pot fi adresate atât în română cât și în limba rusă, le vom traduce aici pentru ea. All right, I'm back to you. And yes, let me know if there is, how much creative freedom is freedom and how much brief is solid brief.
So I think I mentioned at the very beginning. Now there's a shift in focus on collaborating with influencers to make it more like a partnership as opposed to a transactional relationships. So I think for that matter, the trends I've started to see more and more of in the last couple of years are actually to invite influencers to be almost your creative partners. So I would say in the briefing stage, the influencers care a lot more now about the experience itself. And when I say experience, they want to see your product. They want to come and visit your office, or if you have a factory or whatever that product or services you provide, then to provide them the really real experience for them to actually see, understand how it works before they actually endorse your product or services, to make it really authentic. You don't want to ship them a product and get them to use just for a couple of days and write a review. You almost all want to hold them on a journey to really understand how a product is built, or what's the behind scenes, what's the effort that goes into it, and what's the team like behind the whole business that you build. So that being said, I think the initial briefing stage work really well if applicable, is to invite influencers to really experience, to really understand your business. In many ways possible, you can really create that experience for them. And then when it comes to briefing stage, I really think of them as they're not creative agency, right? So you work with the individual influencers who establish their own channel, which they have a engaged community already. So think about the traditional mindset of briefing a creative agency is they provide a service based on your brief, and you give them a brief, and then they are very much like creating the content with the direction. Whereas with influencer, because they know their audience the best, so I would say that the briefing stage would be the one that you almost started off with understanding about their audiences first, understanding about the influencers themselves as well. If you collaborate with a mom influencer, for example, how much do you know, like at what stage, like, what time of the day that she prefers to talk to her audiences, and what time of the week or of the month that, she tends to engage with her wider community, and what kind of topics and she has seen that's worked really well in her mom community, and in what do their parents care about. So if you're advertising a baby product, then you really want to respect their opinions, amongst the type of things, they tend to discuss, and how the product can solve, the questions these moms been asking about. So I would say it's very much a collaborative briefing stage, is do the initial research around how much do you know about this influencer as a person, how much do you know about the audience. And then when it comes to writing the brief, like I said, give them direction, but don't write a script, because I've seen brands trying to write a script, and then the copy and paste kind of like script content does not work, because influencers already developed their tone of the voice, and they want to have their way of working. But I would say what's the part that you need to get involved is the social media guidelines, particularly related to your brand. There are things they absolutely should not say is something you should really provide upfront. So that's basically is to really help them to differentiate your brand to maybe their competitor brand, and to really, the words, there are certain words basically you don't want them to say or mention. I think that's absolutely fine. But in terms of content creation itself, I think brands need to give them a little more freedom and also the trust for them to build the content their audiences want to see.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. We have incoming questions from the audience, and the first one is, how can we grow new influencers?
Is this like a brand trying to work with more influencers?
Let's presume it's a brand that wants to anticipate for the future and wants to grow a new generation of influencers. Or maybe it's part of, a social tribe that wants to create a bigger influencer marketing generation for the future.
Yeah, so I think the best way really to for developing a so again, I think I want to go back to the importance of building a community. So I would look at your audience or your consumers first and thinking about who are these influencers in your consumer space. Like I mentioned, are they parenting influencers, or are they beauty influencers? Are they tech who are basically on like online, like gaming space? So it really depends on what kind of services and products you are marketing, and then decide who your influencers can be in that space. So basically, who's the influencers that really be able to creating relevant content that talking to their viewers on a consistent level to really build this like a very engaged community. And then you may find your influencers probably not even have to be those like the big social media stars, like I say. Maybe you'll find your influencers are very kind of like ordinary people, like I said, are the moms community. I keep saying moms community because I've seen how powerful that community is. You get these moms, talking to each other on a WhatsApp group or on whatever kind of a tribe they have, and you may find actually in that group I identify these 5 influencers who again, not necessarily have millions of followers, and they may have a large presence on social media. And the way you really grow them is to get them to build that further connections with their other peers, and to really help them to really help you to grow your the services or products that you provide, is to get them to try the things that you offer. So it's to offer them something value so they can exchange for that peers reviews. So what products are you trying to sell? Then are they able to test it out? Are you able to organize a workshop for them to all gather together to really have a discussion amongst each other and to have a certain learnings? Are you able to use one influencer to actually gather them all together to really help, or to build a informative content hub to really bring them together? So I think growing influencers takes over time as well. But if you have the almost like the early adopters / innovators in the initial community space, and get them to do the to spread a word out for you because they already are in the community, I think this is the most powerful way for you to develop more influencers.
That's brilliant. I see so many questions rolling in. I will try to summarize them all in just one. What's the next hot thing that we should be looking for? What are the upcoming trends?
So I would say that the upcoming trend is going to be e-commerce. So this is definitely accelerated during COVID again. Like people are a lot more comfortable with online shopping. We've always been doing online shopping, but what I've seen during COVID is a social shoppable feature. It's like people don't necessarily go to those big online e-commerce shops anymore. They go on these social media apps and they're scrolling on feeds, and they've seen the things they love, and they just buy them. I mean, I can't even remember the amount of times I bought things just from Instagram or TikTok. Like I've never expected this, 3, even 2 years ago. So I would say the next thing is to be at where these consumers are, and to really create a cut through, I suppose, a noise to actually make your brand stand out. Whether that is to create a viral, I mean, not all videos will go immediately viral. It's have that kind of consistent schedule, video content on either TikTok, Instagram, or whatever like social media platforms you decide, is for brands to really tap into that audiences, and to really embed it using the feature, embedded their shoppable feature, to allow you to not only demonstrate that you work with influencers to show their lifestyle, to feature their daily lives, but at the same time the consumers will be benefit from actually purchasing those kind of products from social media. And I would say live streaming is very much the next thing that happening in the e-commerce space, is how you're able to use live streaming to really showcase behind the scenes, a day in life, meet your team, to really get people to know you as a business, and to build that trust, and to further drive conversions, drive sales. I think that's the next biggest thing.
That's awesome. It's such a pleasure to have you here. It's such a pleasure to be in a conversation with you. And I can tell there's plenty of questions still coming in. What is the best way to reach out to you? Are you on LinkedIn?
Yes, so LinkedIn is the best place, and please feel free to connect with me and follow me on LinkedIn. My full name is just Yinan Wang. You wouldn't possibly miss that. So yeah, connect with me. I'm happy to connect with you guys, and then we can always just have a chat afterwards.
Great, thank you so much. You're a star, and thank you for being today for just half an hour in Moldova. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks. It's a pleasure. Bye-bye.